Welcome everybody to the screencast on Hilchot Pesach as we take a closer look today at what is and what is not Chametz. Here's a thought. Go and ask 10 people in your neighborhood what the definition of Chametz is. And I'm willing to bet that 9 of them will come back and tell you bread. Well, they wouldn't be wrong, but they're not completely correct either. And that's because Chametz cannot simply be defined as a single term of bread, but more specifically refers to a complex process that is both identified by the Torah and understood by the rabbis to involve 3 ingredients. Let's take a look at what those ingredients are, starting with the first, the chameshet mine dagan, the 5 primary grains that most of our products, our cookies, our cakes, our cereals, our crackers, and our breads come from. These 5 grains are wheat, barley, oat, rye, and spelt. Wheat being the most dominant of these 5 grains. Wheat is the grain of choice for almost every single manufacturer of a grain-based product. Here's a neat way to remember these 5 grains. They form a really handy acronym, browse. So if you just remember the word browse your way through the 5 grains, you'll always remember that the 5 grains are barley, rye, oat, wheat, and spelt. So now that you've got the grain itself, you've got to turn that grain into flour. And so once the grain is flour, it only turns into dough once you add the second of these 3 ingredients, and that is water. By adding water to the 5 grains, you produce dough. And this brings us to the third ingredient, not one that you can buy in a store or find on the aisle of your supermarket. And this ingredient is time. Within 18 minutes, this mixture forms chametz. So let's stop and remind ourselves for a moment about this new definition, if you will, of what chametz actually is. To say that chametz is simply bread would not be fully correct. Chametz, more specifically, refers to a formula. Any of the 5 grains mixed with water and allowed to rise or leaven for 18 minutes. Now pause the video and take a moment to think about which of these 3 ingredients is absent in the making of matzah. Go ahead and pause the video, think about your answer, and then press play to find out what it is. So if you said that the missing ingredient in matzah is time, in other words, that matzah is baked in less than 18 minutes, you'd be correct. Matzah actually has to come from the 5 grains. That's a requirement. And obviously matzah has to be mixed with water to form the dough. The grain has to be mixed with water to form that dough. But here's where chametz and matzah are different. Chametz leavens for 18 minutes or longer. Matzah is baked before it reaches that 18-minute mark. And we'll have a chance to explore this a little bit more when we return to class. But now that we know what chametz is, let's understand what the Torah wants us to do with it, or more specifically, what the Torah doesn't want us to do with it. The Torah tells us, in one of many places where it talks about the laws of Pesach, Shivat Yamim Matzot Tochelu, eat matzah for 7 days. Here in the United States, outside of the land of Israel, we observe Pesach for 8 days, and therefore the obligation to eat matzah would last 8 days and not 7. Ach bayom harishon, but by the first day of Pesach, which is the 15th of Nisan, here is the magic word, tashbitu. You should remove seor, any leavened product, leaven referring to something that rises for more than 18 minutes, mibatechem, from your homes. We'll learn when we return to class that, quote unquote, your home is more than just the place you live. It refers to any place that you have possession of, but more on that a little bit later. So the Torah is quite clear. You must remove chametz from your possession before Pesach actually begins. Now, how do you remove that? That's something we'll talk about when we return to class. But it's clear, all bread-like products, anything that is seor, that is leavened for more than 18 minutes, must be removed from our possession before Pesach begins. So now that we've understood the definition of chametz, when we return to class, we'll have a chance to extend that definition and answer 2 big questions. Number 1, if the Torah tells us that we have to remove chametz, we have to fulfill the mandate of tashbitu, how do you fulfill that exactly? Do you simply hand it over to somebody else? Do you actually destroy it? What is the practical way to fulfill this commandment in today's times? And second, what happens if you don't destroy or remove chametz from your possession before Pesach starts? What if you didn't do tashbitu? What happens then? These are two questions that require a little more investigation. Now that we've learned some of the basics about what chametz is and what it's not, we'll be able to come back to class and tackle these questions in a little more depth and detail. Looking forward to doing that with you. Thanks for watching.